Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, May 19th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times, here with Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of The Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling, bringing you the latest this week in politics. We're going to start off locally and expand from there. Locally, we want to talk about what happened in Porter County with Porter County Commissioner Nancy Adams. She hitched a ride on a plane for a Republican dinner down in Indianapolis, and got into a little hot water, didn't she, Doug?
Right. I mean, basically there was a contractor or consulting firm that does significant business
DLZ.
with the county, exactly, with a number of governments throughout Northwest Indiana in particular. But this company was already flying down there, offered her a ride, and so she accepted.
With the thought she had some county business and
Right.
it would save her time. She could get her county
Save
business
the county
done,
some money.
and then
Right.
hitch a ride down there.
So unfortunately, it was an ethical lapse, and she's since said, basically, "Oops, I should have. I will pay for
She
it."
apologized and said she would pay whatever the cost of the flight was. So, Mark, is no harm, no foul, or is there something to be worried about here?
I don't think there's really anything to be worried about. If PLZ was going to pick up the tab, and you couldn't show any quid pro quo. If they had an empty seat on their plane, they said, "Hey, look, you can go along," and she was actually able to save the taxpayers some money, then I don't have much of a problem. If that was her true motivation, if the true motivation.
Well, it was a Republican dinner, so I don't think the taxpayer would have been picking up the tab for it. It was a political. It was her own political event. So.
Yeah.
And she did pay for her own
Maybe.
ticket for the dinner.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but the question is there an appearance of an ethical lapse involved there?
Not unless you can show some. I don't think unless you can show some type of quid pro quo. If when you say, well, the excuse me, the taxpayer would not have been picking up the tab. The taxpayer always picks up the tab somehow. If not in one way, then in another. The taxpayer may not have been directly billed for it, but somehow it seems that politicians of either stripe are able to find a way to get away from paying out of their own pocket for whatever it is.
Well, you make them sound like barnacles on the side of a ship. But
I think that's a fair comparison. Except barnacles come off a lot easier.
well, you scrape them periodically.
Yeah. We don't do that. We just leave them on there.
The question is, where do you go from here?
Do we need maybe a code of ethics or an ethics policy?
And there is one. She's a quite new county commissioner, having just been elected in last November. So I don't think she understood as well as some of the others should have.
Yeah.
But to me, it goes back to if you don't have the training in ethical behavior, then how do you expect them to behave appropriately?
Well, let's face it. Is anyone here going to really contend that our representatives in Washington, D.C. don't go out to dinner with lobbyists? Now, what's the difference if you go to a restaurant in Washington, D.C. where it costs you $320 versus getting on a plane with someone and flying down to Indianapolis with them?
Well, some people would say both are problems. So.
Some people will say both are problems, but if you're not going to clean up one, then I'm not sure the pot can call the kettle black.
Well, you clean a house one room at a time. So
The question is, with whose room do you start?
well, I'd say with this room, because the other room's a lot bigger mess.
It's like Hercules cleaning the stables, Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that unless now if you could show that she had already voted for some PLZ contracts, or if we see in the future that she favors them, then I think you've got a problem. But if
Well, I'm sure that they're going to get some scrutiny, and any contracts that come up involving them are going to
Oh,
get
absolutely.
extra scrutiny, as they should.
and any contracts that come up should get some scrutiny, and if there's a problem there, maybe she should abstain from voting on it. Maybe she should just say, look, you know what, I took a ride down there from them, and I'm just going to step out of this one.
Well, the problem will be solved. I think if they, first require the public official to sign off on the policy, which it sounds like they're going to do, and that presumably would mean that the public official actually reads
Right.
what they're signing off on,
Right.
and that they get training to, refresh memories and reinforce standards
I
of behavior.
think that's something everyone would agree on.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the ultimate decision will come at the voting booth. Are people convinced with her explanation? Are they not?